Hi, welcome to the Youthwork Plus podcast. This is Becky, and my name's Olly.
And as a special Christmas treat, we're bringing you the OG hosting pair that everyone's been quietly wanting.
Really quietly.
Yeah. Our last video that we did together a couple of months ago, there were a couple of comments on there that said, yes, the original pair are back together hosting. Hopefully, this is a bit of a treat for you. It is coming out just before Christmas. We just thought we'd have a chat about what we've been up to recently and chat about some stuff that hopefully we can inspire you with and encourage you in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, so what have you been doing? Do you want to start, Becky? What have you been up to?
A couple of weekends ago, I went to Youthscape's National Youth Ministry Weekend in Birmingham. So that was a good little weekend.
Yeah, how was it?
Yeah, so for those people who don't know, it's basically like a weekend conference for youth leaders. There's about 1,000 people that came from across the UK and some further afield. Some came from abroad. And it's basically a weekend all tailored to people who do youth ministry. So there's seminars around all different youth ministry topics. There are main sessions with worship and guest speakers. There is opportunity for coaching. There's like prayer space. There's exhibition space for different charities and organisations to kind of showcase what they do, and a chance to touch base with other connections you might have around the country of people who do youth ministry, or chances to meet new people if you like go to the conference on your own. There's like little dinners and stuff you can go to connect with people. It was probably my 5th time going. I haven't been 5 consecutive years in a row. A couple of those years have been consecutive, but yeah, I didn't go last year.
How's the new venue? So I went a lot early doors, but I've not been since they moved.
Yeah, so it was at the Vox in Resorts World near the NEC in Birmingham. And then it moved to a central Birmingham location at a hotel and conference centre called the East Side Rooms. And now it is back at the Vox.
Oh, was it? What was wrong with the East Side rooms?
So I don't know. They moved to try and give, I think, more options for accommodation and stuff for people to be able to get accommodation cheaper. And I think that was the aim. I don't know whether that actually worked in reality. And I think it also allowed them to have more space. But then I think the years that they were at East Side Rooms, they didn't necessarily have as many people book on. And I don't think,
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know. Some people that I know said that accommodation wasn't really that much cheaper centrally. And actually, it meant they had to go further to get lunch and stuff because there wasn't restaurants
Okay,
and stuff
interesting.
as local. So yeah, I'm not really 100% sure. I'm not an organizer of the event, so I don't know the decisions behind it. But this year I found it really helpful. I went on my own. I didn't go to any of the like meetups for people who'd gone on their own. But they were hosted by a friend of ours. So Mike at 267 hosted
Nice.
those. Love Mike. I would have gone because of him, but no, I didn't go because I brought my husband and daughter to the hotel with me so they could have a little break out of it themselves as well. I didn't do any of the extra after hours stuff. So there's like a whole after hours program where like you can go to dinners and meet up with people. After hours program where there's entertainment and stuff that you can go to. I didn't go to any of that because I went back to the hotel to hang out with Alex and Ray. But yeah, I found, and I didn't go to many seminars. I went to a couple. The main sessions were really good. Like Pete Gregg was speaking, Laura Hancock, and Kendra Creasy Dean from Princeton Theological College.
Interesting. Yeah.
And there was a 4th speaker whose name I can't remember off the top of my head now. Yeah, there was 4 main sessions. It was a guy who does youth work in London. His name has gone out of my head. He was on the first night. I found it encouraging just to be in the main sessions. The seminars I went to was the Enneagram and Youthwork,
Interesting.
which I was looking forward to because I was thinking, oh, I'm familiar with the Enneagram, which is one of those personality test things, if you don't know.
I always think it sounds like a more medical procedure than a.
Yeah. Like some sort of scan, a medical scan.
Yeah, or like an enema. I don't know. It sounds gross.
So yeah, and I thought it was, to be honest, they were quite stretched for time for that seminar because it was in the middle section. So there was like a seminar before it, a seminar after it, and the site team had to reset the room between and took quite a long time doing that. So it was cut short because we started late and then it finished early because the site team wanted to get in to reset the room. So they had grand plans for doing some group work, and they had a bunch of statements on the screen that you had to go into a group depending which you agreed with. They'd basically bunched 3 different personality types into each group. So it was like 3 segments kind of thing. And the point of it was to see whether, because it was a youth work scenario, and the answers were based on what you would do for
Oh,
that youth work
interesting.
scenario. And it was basically to see whether you would default to what you thought your personality type was on the Enneagram, or whether you'd have a different response because it was more work related or
Yeah.
volunteer related to your youth work role. So it was interesting because I actually didn't go to, my response was different, I think, to if it was a personal scenario,
What Enneagram thing are you?
because of however I've changed or morphed because of doing youth work as a job, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like shaped your personality.
Yeah, so like I think also because when you do something for a job, there is probably a particular way you probably feel like you should deal with something, a scenario or an issue or a problem, which most of these I would go more with my head and what I thought I should do rather than like gut reaction or an emotional reaction, which is different to probably how I'd respond if it was something personal. But yeah, that was interesting. And then I also went to a seminar which was about different stages of youth ministry. So if you've been in it for like 20 years, it was talking about different stages that you go through where you're sort of, when you first start, you're in a learning phase, and then you go into a different, I think there were 4 phases. I can't remember what the 4 were, but there was 4 different ones. And then the last one was like using everything you've learned up to this point to pass on skills to other people.
Okay.
So it could be like 4 stages throughout your career. So you have a couple of stages in one job, move to a different job, and you go through the stages, start again. Or it could be like going through the stages in the same job kind of thing, but as it's changed the longer you've been there. So it was sort of bespoke to each person's context, I guess. And some people recognise that each role that they've had in youth ministry, they've gone through all 4 stages, whereas other people who've been in jobs for longer, like they might have gone through like stage 1 to 3 at one job, and then their second job has been more of a stage 4 thing where they didn't start again at the beginning.
Yeah, okay.
But it was something like the role that I'm doing with Youthwork Plus, whether it is more of a supporting role, therefore it is more in the stage 4 of the model. So that was an
Who was
interesting one to go to.
in that?
That was led by a Scottish guy whose name I can't remember, Paul something.
Okay.
But yeah, what was really good at the end of that seminar was that he allowed people to ask questions, and there were all sorts of questions from all different contexts. And then he got the room to answer them. So there was like lots of different people sharing their wisdom on different things. So yeah, I thought that was really good as well. Because actually, depending on your perspective and your experience, like you would answer the questions in slightly different ways. So there was a whole breadth of knowledge in the room and people sharing their opinion on different topics, which was good. And I kind of thought there should have been a seminar like just on that Q&A where people could have just
With
asked
everyone.
questions for the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Were there many people who like were 20 years plus in the session?
Yeah, there were quite a few.
Hey, that's really good.
Yeah, so that was me.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were a few others like me who had been in it for a long time. But yeah.
So if people are thinking about going, you'd recommend it?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It is, obviously there is a cost involved and it doesn't include accommodation, so you have to add that on top. But I think even if you're a volunteer, you're going to get a lot out of it, and actually your church might be able to contribute towards it. So it's not kind of all personal cost. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth asking the question and saying, like, selling it as a personal development thing that is actually going to have a positive knock-on effect on your youth, kids or family ministry role. And it's definitely worth going. And there's a whole like range of seminars that tailored to different contexts and different stages of ministry. So I thought there was definitely a lot more on the programme this year for people who've been in it for a longer period of time, which I feel like is probably them responding to feedback of people who wanted some different things.
Yeah. It's encouraging that there's enough people who've been in it a long time that
Yeah,
they're now shaping. I always
yeah,
found it really good. When I went, I found it was a good, well led, well run, but also just nice to have the time to think strategically. It actually felt quite restful, even though it was a bit manic and you're always in.
yeah,
The thing about the Vox is it's always noisy. You're never
yeah,
so you're tired from that. But personally, I found it really helpful. I come away being like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do with the youth ministry, and this is
mm,
why, and here are the
yeah.
things that we should be doing. So it was worth the money and the time for the value that came out of it for me when I used to go.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's space within the program as well for you to, if you're the kind of person who needs time to reflect on what you've heard, there's space within the program to be able to walk back to your hotel. I recommend getting one that was within walking distance, so you're not stuck at the venue for the whole day and feeling like you need to make the most of it. But yeah, there's definitely space within the program to reflect on stuff. And there's like a space you can go to receive prayer or to just sit quietly and read your notes or reflect on what you've heard or kind of ask God what where he's leading you and what you want to kind of stick from what you've heard. And yeah, I feel like I'm still processing stuff, especially as I was going back to the hotel to my family, so I kind of didn't have space to sit and reflect as much as I would have liked, I think. But yeah, no, it was good fun. And I've already booked my ticket for next year. So they sold out this year. And so they were recommending that people book on sooner. And there was a discount if you bought the first 300 tickets or something were discounted. So,
Do they still do that thing where you can reserve them, and then if you don't want it, you can give it back and you get your money?
I'm not sure
They
if
used to
they
do
do
that,
that,
which was
but
good.
you can buy multiple tickets and you don't have to tell them till nearer the time who that
Oh,
ticket's
that's
for,
cool.
kind of
Yeah, so you
thing.
can buy it for the
Like,
team.
yeah, you can buy additional ones for your team and then fill in the blanks of who's going to take the ticket. But yeah, I'm not sure if you can give them back. They didn't mention that. But yeah.
That used to be a thing.
But yeah, definitely recommend that. So yeah, it's normally November time each year. In 2025, they're bringing it forward a week. So I think it's like the 14th, 15th, 16th of November. And it's called the National Youth Ministry Weekend, or NYMW for short.
And it's run by Youthscape. So
Yeah, look it up.
if you're
Look it
Googling.
up. And what about you? What have you been up to recently?
I've done all my Vicar exams, which was very
Well done.
yeah, I was pleased to get it all done. That was something. They do it the way I do it with my course was like a week and a bit of. I had 4 hours because I was dyslexic. 4 hour exam a day for 6 days on the trot on
Wow,
different topics. It blazed did that. That was good. I felt like a flurry of activity.
that sounds intense. Was it intense?
Yeah, it was really really intense, and I was really tired. It was cool. It was really interesting to do, and it's a good opportunity to get to do it. But it was tired. It was really intense and tiring. You're like, oh, I know so much stuff all at the same time, and I can't just Google it. You just get so used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you can't look anything up. It's all closed book. So that was good. Did that, and then over summer I went to the US for a month
Yeah.
on a placement.
Yeah. So you were
Which
talking about that the last time we
was
spoke,
I?
I think, just pre summer. So
Yeah,
yeah, tell us about that.
that was so good. So I went and worked for a church called Christ the King Church on Pawleys Island in South Carolina. And it was amazing to see how they did their church stuff and their children's work. It was really interesting to see culturally different styles of children and youth work and how that looked and the way that they were able to do things within that context, they were all really cool things. Some stuff that would probably work in the UK, some stuff that definitely wouldn't work in the UK, because even between South Carolina and, Oxfordshire in England, the cultural differences were there. And the vicar and his wife and family kindly put us up for 2 weeks. So we were living with them for 2 weeks. And then a family in the church, or a lady in the church, let us stay in a kind of holiday apartment that she had as a kind of rental property, but she let us stay there, which was cool. Learned loads about ministry in a context which is quite similar to England, but different enough to see the massive difference. Even culturally, in that part of America, it's still not really post-Christian. So even people who aren't Christian have no worry. You can, there's no Christian values, and saying that you're a Christian, even if you don't believe it, is like a kind of normal, much more normal thing. But that was cool. And seeing there how they do the school's work and was interesting to see. Yeah, that was, and then back here at Wycliffe. I'm at Wycliffe right now and just doing more kind of practical things. So I've just had a whole week on death, dying, and bereavement, which is it was rough, but good to be prepared for. And some of the stuff you come up against in youth ministry, some of it, kind of dealing with bereaved family members who've lost like grandparents isn't really a youth work vibe particularly. I deal with young people and children who've lost their grandparents, but yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, that's it really. Exciting. Nothing to report. I can recommend going and being in America for a bit. That's good. I genuinely think it's a good way to learn about ministry if you ever get the opportunity to do it, just because it's different enough but the same enough that it gives space to be like, hey, that's weird, we do that this way. I don't think we have to do it that way.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I find America, like, it's obviously they speak English and it feels the same, but at the same time, it feels very different. It's sort of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, and it helps, I think, because you go to somewhere like where the language isn't the same and the kind of base culture isn't the same, just like not much overlap in terms of the kind of culture of there 300 years ago. But like in America, it's like, it feels as if it should be more like England than it is, and it's not. And so different from place to place too. That was the thing I realized. I always used to kind of think of America as one big blob, where it's all basically the same, and it's totally not. It's more like Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to do. I'm glad I got to do it and got to see their youth ministry and their children's ministry and their ministry among men and women and older people and younger people and families. It was very, very cool. Very inspired by a parenting course that they ran. And I always have been a bit like, I would hate to run a parenting course because it feels like you're teaching other people how to parent. And I'm not sure I'm not that good at it for people to, who's going to want to learn how to parent from me. But the course, it was really, really good. And it's just like an online thing called Connected Families. And it's American, but me and my wife are doing it now and like really enjoying them.
Nice. I think as well with those kind of things, it's about creating a space, isn't it?
Yeah.
Facilitating a space for parents to be able to share knowledge with each other and share things that work and troubleshoot things that don't.
Yeah. And have time to think, like, why do we do this as parents? Like, why do like and examine yourself as a parent and be like, oh yeah, no, I do that, and that's not good and I need to work on it. Or
Yeah. And to realise that actually everybody else doesn't have it sorted.
yeah. Yeah. That's been me. I've been up to.
Cool. And like what's next with your course? You've still got a bit of time
Yeah.
before
So I found out, and it's kind of public, I've got a curacy lined up in Chipping Norton, and St Mary's in Chipping Norton, which I'm really excited about. It's a really, really cool church, and I'm really keen to go and work and learn there. So start that in June. But before that, I've got a few more essays and things to work on and things to learn. And I'm helping here at Wycliffe to run, calling it Fight Club, because in church stuff, I think we've got like quite a lot of things where we disagree actually across lots of theological things, and they're important too. And so trying to work a way out of and I think this happens quite well in youth work, but working together with people who you disagree with on stuff that's important. And the default way is to just never talk about it, or to kind of go off into little cliques and be like, those guys are terrible because they think differently. So just trying to experiment while we're here of like, can we actually talk about the stuff that gets people cross and that they care passionately about,
Mm.
but listen to the other side and hear where they're really genuinely coming from.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited about that. That's a fun
Yeah.
kind of little side project that I'm running.
Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. Well, congratulations about your curacy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Interested to hear all about it when you start next year.
Yeah, hopefully be able to tell people all about it.
Yeah.
Anyone's welcome to come visit and say hi.
What are you guys doing for Christmas?
So we're taking our opportunity we always used to travel because I was fairly jammy in terms of Christmas work when I was in youth ministry. The kind of weeks around Christmas, we'd do our final Christmas social, which would be around the kind of 20th of December. And then there was nothing till New Year. So we used to go and visit my family and my wife's family. So we're taking the last opportunity to do that because probably won't be able to do that in kind of vicary things, because if there are Christmas Day service things, then I'll have to run them, which there are. So making the most of that. I've got a week off next week, which is very cool. Again, making the most of being a student and having 2 weeks off for Christmas.
Yeah.
And doing Christmas shopping, having some time, just me and Joe. Joe's managed to have time off work as well. So
Nice.
we're going to do that together. What about you? What are you up to?
So yeah, still in the midst of Christmas shopping. So we have 6 people to buy football. We've got more than that, but I've like combined some of the kids together from the same family to get them a game that they can play together, kind of thing, to simplify my list. Because yeah, we've got a big family and we buy for all my cousins' kids, which makes it a lot, and nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters and parents, and we get gifts for the nursery teachers, and so yeah, we've got a lot. I feel like I've got like 2 or 3 presents left to buy from that list, which is pretty impressive. I did start in November to try and get a head start, but yeah, I've almost finished with that. And then other Christmas prep, we've got 12 on Christmas Day, so I need to do Christmas food shopping for that. I've done a couple of festive pre-orders, one at Sainsbury's and one at Tesco, that I need to collect and probably log on and add some more stuff to once I've figured out what other stuff we need food wise. But yeah, looking forward to that Christmas Day. We've got 12 family coming over, so that'd be fun. Ray's got little cousins coming over, which she's excited about. It's the first Christmas, she's 2.5 now, and it's the first Christmas that she's been excited pre-Christmas because she knows what's coming. So that's quite a cool little
That's a nice
stage.
stage.
Yeah, so she's asking like almost every day, like, is it Christmas yet?
That's so
And
cute.
making sure that we know what she wants for Christmas. Like she's really keen to get a new baby doll and a little play kitchen.
That's
Like,
that's good to know though.
yeah, that is good to know. But yeah, she keeps reminding us that that's what she wants and making sure that whoever needs to know knows that that is what she wants.
My daughter's very good at that as well. We always know exactly what she wants, and then she basically knows what it is when we bought the present.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. I think it will be cute this year. She will. Yeah, she's more up to speed with what it's about, I guess. Whereas before, it's happened around her and she's been a part of it. But this year, I feel like there's more excitement in the house, and she's hyper most of the time now because obviously it's getting nearer, and there's other fun stuff that's happening. So yeah, they've had fun stuff. They've been crafts and stuff they've been making at nursery for Christmas and different stuff that's been happening. So, and parties with church that we're going to. And
yeah, does she get the kind of Christian-y bit of Christmas too now? Has she got to that stage?
So we've got like a knitted nativity, and so we've like, she knows that baby Jesus has got something to do with Christmas, but I don't think she fully gets it. She just thinks that baby Jesus is a baby at Christmas, not necessarily the significance of him being born or who he really was. So I think that yeah, there's still some learning and some growth to be had there.
We should do a podcast on that sometime about children and the meaning of Christmas.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, in the midst of all of that, because I do find Christmas shopping quite stressful, and I feel we're quite busy as a family in the lead up, both with work and with other stuff that's happening. So maybe we can share how we de-stress in the midst of that.
Yeah. I feel like our approaches, mine and your approaches, definitely reflect our different personalities. So where you've finished your Christmas shopping, basically, I haven't started yet. That's next week's job. And some of that is part of my coping mechanism. Back in the kind of youth ministry times, I would sort of almost as a side project have sorting Christmas. But really, I was like, I'm on work now. I'm in work mode, and I can't really, there's little stuff that you have to do, but then I'd be not that present in terms of the kind of organization, which isn't a good thing. I'm not advocating for this as an approach, but like, so that would always be my way. And then we would go like, bam, we had like efficient ways of almost like optimizing last minute efficiency for Christmas. And we had the massive advantage where you guys are hosting. We've always been hosted. So either my mum will have us or Joe's parents will have us all as a family. And so they're taking all the stress. But I think it is a massive, still, even say like with that in mind, it's still a massive stressful time. And I think I had to learn the kind of guilt-free putting everything down. And so for me, it was like having very clear dates, which was helpfully punctuated because our Christmas stuff when I was in the youth ministry was always, I have finished. There's the big final Christmas social, which was like logistically a nightmare and was really stressful. And I'd be working 8 and kind of half present at home because I was thinking, when are we going to get all these pizzas here? And we've got all the things. Like, is everything ready? Are the games going to work? Like, is all the kind of risk assessment and safeguarding stuff in place? Like that kind of stuff would just be in my mind until it was done, and then it was done. So, yeah, I don't know if it's the best way, but my way has always been having an end point, and then from there, everything gets put down. And same when I was doing this degree, I had to write a big dissertation and I had to prepare for all the other things coming up. So I worked quite hard, but I still was like, okay, by the sort of 20th of December type time, I'm going to put all this down and only be, because I don't know about you, but I just really struggle holding all the different things have to mentalize. Holding all the different balls in the air is the most stressful thing. And I feel like I'm doing neither of them well, like, I've got to sort my family for Christmas. I've got to sort out this work thing. And that gets harder when stuff's smudged in. And so if ministry is structured whereby you're like doing Christmas stuff for work right up until Christmas Day, I'm going to have to find a new pattern. But hopefully there'll be a point, like I know like a lot of vicars will do like Christmas morning and then it's done. And then from there, I'm having a big break. And so I think, yeah, having that end point in sight where you're like, I'm now going to put all the work down and it doesn't all blur into one. Because otherwise I found you just enter January really exhausted and you're not ready for the fresh new year of ministry and you've got nothing left to give anybody else. And it just drags on until summer again. Yeah, what about for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm definitely a list maker, and that helps me feel like I'm more in control of things rather than having a million things to do and not necessarily knowing how I'm going to fit them in. So I sat down the day before yesterday, wrote the list into dates as well. So what I need to do, broken down into the different dates so that I feel like it's more manageable. So yesterday I had 5 things on my to-do list that I knew needed to get done yesterday. And then I've spaced it out between now and Christmas to know what I need to do, what I need to get done when, to make it a whole lot more manageable, which has made me feel less stressed about it. But I think as well, in the midst of that, trying to find time to do things that we enjoy as well. So like we always do we've got a group of friends that we do a meal with in the run up to Christmas. So we've got that tonight. We've all got babysitters to look after our kids, and we are going around one of their houses to have a meal together. And we'll play games and stuff and just have some time that is fun, which I think is important to do in the midst of Christmas period. And I can't remember the last time we had a babysitter to look after Ray and go out and do something by ourselves. Even that in itself is a big deal for us. And then we've planned a couple more fun things as well before Christmas. So Sunday before Christmas, we're going to Waddesdon Manor, one of the National Trust houses. They've got a light trail and
Hey,
a
fun.
projection thing on the house and stuff that we're going to go do with my parents, hang out with them. And then after Christmas, Alex's dad's coming down from Shrewsbury for the weekend. So we're hanging out with him and doing some fun stuff. So yeah, just planning in fun moments that we're looking forward to that don't require a lot of pre-planning.
Yeah, and I think like doing them guilt-free as
Yeah,
well is like a really good discipline of like, no,
yeah,
this is guilt. I'm not feeling bad about this. I'm not. Yeah,
yeah. And even gift-wise, like I have a lot of gifts to buy. This year, I feel like I normally put a lot of pressure on myself to like find the best gift for each person. And like it has to be like something they're gonna love, or I feel like I've failed. Whereas I feel like this year I've spent less time thinking about each person, but more just thinking what's something that's going to be good, but like not bending over backwards to find something that's going to be perfect. If that makes sense. So I put less pressure on myself
yeah,
to find the perfect thing, but something I know they're going to enjoy anyway.
yeah.
If that
It's
makes
like good
sense.
enough. Like,
Yeah, like I found something and
yeah.
that's good enough, and that will be good, kind of thing.
And perfect almost has those like diminishing returns too, doesn't it? Like it's like 90% of the effort gets an incredible present. Wait, but then it's so much harder that last 10% to get the perfect thing. And I think even with youth ministry stuff, I found that I could run this event and to get it 90% as good as I wanted it was was great. But to make it better after that was like more than double the effort, and
Yeah,
it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't good. People didn't
yeah,
benefit enough from it, and then I'd be all burnt out at the other end of it. So that if someone called me afterwards and is like, "Oh, is it all right if we have a chat about this?" or I've been praying through this thing, or yeah, I'd be like, "No, leave me alone." Yeah, I think that's good.
yeah. And I think like especially when you're involved with ministry, like it's important to find times within like the program of activities where like you're going to be able to go and spend some time reflecting as well. We've got a carol service on Sunday, and like they've asked volunteers to come and do certain things. Because I do ministry for a job, I'm kind of like, actually, I'll let some other people sign up for those things
Yeah, yeah,
so that I could just go and enjoy it. Which to me, even saying it out loud sounds I feel a bit guilty for having done that. But at the same time, I feel like actually there are other people who don't do ministry for a job who actually might enjoy volunteering at that more than I would feel obligated to go and
yeah,
volunteer.
yeah, yeah,
So actually, by not volunteering, I've given them an opportunity,
yeah,
and also I don't need to feel guilty about going and enjoying something. So I think it would be good to just go and be able to enjoy the carol service and reflect on the meaning of it, and yeah, it'd
yeah.
be
That
good.
can be hard when the stuff like that is work. If you work for a church and you're like, actually, I want to take my family to a crib service or whatever the thing is, and I want the
Yeah,
kids to really enjoy it, and I want to get something out of it as a family, to be able to make that feel not like work,
yeah,
like getting fed or receiving from your workplace. I think is
mm,
difficult. It's a difficult knack, but it's important over Christmas
yeah.
because a lot of the Christmas stuff is important, kind of.
Yeah, and I think if you end up leading everything or being involved in everything as a volunteer, then you miss that opportunity to reflect yourself as well on what the meaning of Christmas is. And
Yeah,
sometimes we
yeah, and
need,
allow the Holy Spirit to
yeah,
actually talk to you and convict you and move you forward in your faith and stuff. You just go through the motions, put on a helpful service, a helpful show for everybody else, but then
yeah,
yeah, you can only do that so many times before it just becomes a thing that you do that has no meaning for you.
yeah, yeah. And then since we last spoke, obviously I turned 40, which is a big milestone for me.
Yeah, how's it feel?
I I don't think I feel that much different. I definitely don't feel 40
You
or
don't look 40.
feel what I thought 40 would feel like. I don't know what I thought 40 would feel like, but like, I mean, thinking back to like, I don't know, my 20s when I thought 40 was old, or
Yeah,
when you're in your early 20s and 40 is double your age, and you feel like it will be a big deal.
Yeah, it's basically the end of life, that.
I definitely don't feel as old as I am. In my head, I still feel like I'm in my 20s or 30s. I feel like I am definitely wiser and more confident than I was in my 20s. I feel like in my 20s, I was figuring out how to be an adult and I didn't really know anything looking back. And really insecure and like didn't really know. I guess I still don't really know what life is all about, but I care less about it.
Yeah.
I think in your 20s, you care too much about what other people think, and you're trying to please everybody and figure out what you want to do with life. And by the time you get to 40, some of those worries and fears are not there anymore. So I feel like you're a lot more settled, I guess, in who you are. It's
Yeah.
like I care loads less about what other people think
Yeah.
about me. I'm just like, they can think what they think. I
And
am who I am.
is it the same? Like, I think I'm not quite 40 yet. I'm almost there, but like I've found that I'm much more confident with who I'm not, as well as who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, in your 20s, you're maybe aspiring to be a certain type of person, and like by the time, yeah, late 30s, I'm not like that. I can't be like that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'm never going to be that, and I
Yeah,
can
I've
let it go
tried.
now.
I'm not that. That's fine. Like, which is quite liberating. I think it's quite a liberating
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the first of a lot of my friendship groups to turn 40. A few of them have asked me, like, how is it? What's it like? Kind of thing. And I guess I said already, I don't really feel that much different, other than things I was already feeling before. Like, I feel like when you get to 40, you sneeze and like immediately your back hurts, or there's just like, certain things that your limbs ache more when you do stuff, and things that you don't really imagine, I guess, until you're there. And you just realize that that is just part of getting older and age and stuff.
How about, has it affected your relationship with youth work and young people? And I know, like, you've obviously transitioned into a slightly different role. Yeah, how has it made any difference to the way you think about that or approach that?
Not really. We've spoken before on the podcast about seasons, haven't we, in ages and stages. And I think like, at the minute, I'm not volunteering with Youthwork either. Whereas, like, if I didn't have a 2-year-old daughter, I probably would be. So there's that whole thing in the mix as well. So it's not that I'm not volunteering with youth ministry because I'm 40 now and I think I'm too old, which
Yeah.
some people might think. And I think there is a bit of a stigma and an idea around youth work that you need to be young and cool to be able to do it. And it needs to be someone in their 20s who understands youth culture. Or I think there are those kind of ideas still floating around within church, and I don't think those are right. And my experience from doing youth ministry for 20 years is that actually anybody of any age can do youth ministry, and they're all just as effective as each other. And you don't have to be young and cool to understand young people. You just have to be a person.
Yeah, and want to. I think wanting to understand them.
Yeah, be willing to understand and be willing to listen and be willing to show up and be consistent. And those are the things that really matter. Like, having known young people that I've known over those years, like some of the older people who have been volunteers have actually been the ones that have been more meaningful, because a lot of young people don't have grandparents or don't have relationships with them. So some young people really need those grandparent figures as volunteers or as workers within youth ministry. And similarly, sometimes they can really connect with younger people who are good role models, but they need all ages of people who are involved in youth ministry. And I think everybody, regardless of age, has a place within that. I think it comes down to a willingness, doesn't it? Yeah, a willingness to take the time to connect with young people.
Yeah, and it's the same. I think that's just the same for ministry with at any age. You know, like, you don't have to be in your 90s to work with people in their 90s, and you don't have to be in your 20s to work with people who are teenagers. And sure, I don't understand what it's like to be. I guess I've got more chance of understanding what it's like to be a teenager because I've actually been one. I've never been 70, so I don't know
Yeah.
what that's like. And I think it's like a desire to want to know and to realize sometimes at different life stages mean different things. So I mean, we'll talk about this, I guess, a bit in a sec, but like sometimes when you had kids and you're sleep deprived, and a young person is worried about, like, I don't know, something that you just think that doesn't matter, or I'm just really worried because I don't know if this boy or girl likes me and I like them. You're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. They either do or they don't." But I remember being that age and feeling those emotions, and they're real, and they're not nothing. And just because I'm sleep deprived, and I'm like, talk to me when you've got real problems, like that. It's not true, and it's the same. Like, I don't know, you go and like chat with older people, and I'm talking to elderly relatives sometimes, and they used to kind of say things like, "Oh, this person's died today." You're like, "Oh, that's cheery," but that's what's going on. And obviously, I'm not faced with thinking about the fact that I'm older and that I'm getting closer to that. And it's just because you can't relate naturally, it doesn't mean you can't empathize. And I think that's the same with young people in different stages. Although I think stages do make a difference into how you interact with young people. I want to talk a little bit about different life stages and how that affects
But
history.
like, obviously, we're both in the same stage in that we've had kids and we've been in ministry pre-kids and post-kids.
Yeah,
Do you want to
yeah,
share some stuff on that?
yeah. I mean, I just found I started like in my youth ministry role when I was like 19, and kind of worked through being young and a bit lazy and a bit kind of all over the place and learning everything. And then after that, I got much more efficient and had way more time. Like this, so I was working before I was married. Me and Joe were going out, but Joe lived in Sheffield, and so I had loads of time, and I just chucked all my time because I cared about it into youth ministry stuff. I loved it. I found it engaging and energizing. I had loads of flexible time that I could do as and when needed. And like, so our youth work at that time was really big because I could just do tons of stuff. So that's a good idea. Let's do that. That's a good idea. Let's do that. That's a good idea. Let's do that. And you can go hard, hard, hard. And you can, if you're really tired, you can like sleep through a whole day off and not do much because it doesn't matter because it's only you.
Yeah.
You clean the room and you eat some food, and that's life admin done. And then you're back to it again. But then as I progressed, me and Joe got married, and then it was important I spent time with Joe because I wanted to stay married. And so then that meant my time was a little bit reduced, and there were sacrifices I wasn't willing to make anymore. So that hit the youth ministry because the stuff I'd say no to, and I wasn't permanently available anymore. That was a good thing to do. It's a right thing to do, but it meant I couldn't do as much youth ministry when people would get annoyed with me because I'd say no a bit more. And I'm terrible at saying no,
Yeah.
but if it came to a choice of like making sure my marriage was was working and having the awkward conversation of saying no, and then kids ramped that up again. My time was much less and my energy was less. It wasn't just that I didn't have as much time, I just didn't have as much energy. I wasn't sleeping as much, and I've got an extra person to help keep alive. And when I've done all my own life admin, I've got to do theirs as well. And so, not that I'm that good at life admin, to be fair. Talk to my wife; she probably does all of it. But like, but I just think a willingness to accept that that's okay. And what I saw our youth ministry get, it had numerically, or in the things that we were doing, it had an effect on it. But that was okay. And people are at different stages too. I think there's seasons of singleness where actually you need to invest in stuff outside of your work, and that's to the detriment of the ministry that you do. And again, I think my experiences of marriage and children, but that happens for other people with different things who don't get married, who don't have children, who whatever the thing is. But having permission to allow that, because it's natural. The ministry, you want to see the ministry grow. The people who are line managing you are like, yes, this person does everything. That's great. And then to pull back from that and not do that anymore,
Yeah.
even if they're good line managers, it's going to be like, oh, wait, I used to do that. But it's like, actually, no, I'm going to focus on my friendships. I'm losing this hobby that I really want to do. And I think as you get older, those things, you can't sacrifice them as much and still stay sane. I don't know. I don't know if you agree or what you think. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And I think I was trying to think through what some of the reasons or thought patterns were for some of the things that I did, whether it was to do with the season or the stage, or whether it was to do with my own perception of of ministry and how that's changed over the amount of years that I've been doing it. Because I feel like I was similar. So when I first started doing youth ministry as a job, I definitely felt like maybe I'd got the job as some sort of fluke in the back of my mind, and that I needed to work as hard as possible to be able to prove myself to the church that I was the best person for the job. So I'd say yes to everything. And if I had a weeknight free and there was the chance to do an extra thing, then I'd fill it with a youth work activity. And then I definitely got to the stage at some point within that where the rest of my life was suffering. I didn't have time for friends.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time to reflect and focus on my own relationship with God. And it was, I guess I had a realization one day that it wasn't a good thing to say yes to everything, and that there needed to be boundaries within that to realize what time. Because I think there was definitely a stage where I thought it was better to give as much time as I could to the ministry because it would be stronger. But I didn't realize that would be at detriment to me,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I thought the best thing would be to give as much time as possible. And I didn't realize there'd be any negative side effects to that at all. And I think that is a naivety of ministry, and perhaps to do with, again, that naivety of being in your 20s and thinking that you can do everything.
Yeah, because you sort of can.
Which you sort of can, but at the same time, you do get to a stage at some point where if you continue going at 100 miles an hour, that you will burn out at some point.
Yeah. And it's also bad for the ministry. If the ministry becomes the Becky or Olly show, that's not healthy. Even though it seems healthy because there's a lot going on. It can't all be shaped around one person and their gargantuan efforts to keep him. It's just not good. It's not a good way to minister.
Yeah. And so I think my mindset has definitely changed the longer I've been in ministry, to know there are definitely things that you should say no to. And just because you have an evening free doesn't mean you should necessarily use it. And I feel like I'm very protective now of evenings, in the sense that I don't do any evenings of ministry. I think I probably swung the other way, perhaps slightly too much at the minute, to be honest. But then, I am at the stage where, evenings are tricky. Ray's at the age where you put her down for bed and she doesn't stay asleep.
Yeah.
So, if I'd gone out and done a ministry thing or was serving to do something in an evening, I know I'd feel the mum guilt that I wasn't here when she's lying and waking up and asking for mummy. And it won't always be like that. She won't always have that. Is a definite stage. She won't always be waking up in the evening wanting me. So at some stage, I'll be able to do stuff in the evenings again. And at some stage, I will go back and help on the youth team, to do volunteer youth ministry again. And there might even be opportunity to get involved in other ministries that are not to do with church, that are local youth ministry stuff that I'll have the time and the flexibility to be able to help with. So yeah, I guess I'm open-minded about and honest about the stage that I'm in, to know I can't say yes to everything. Actually, it's healthier for me to say no more than I say yes at the minute, to protect time with family and to protect the stage that I'm at, I guess. And I think if I hadn't have learned what I'd learned up to now, I would feel quite guilty saying that or doing that. And I think it depends on the person who is your boss or who is your vicar, as to whether there is guilt piled on you from that person for saying no to things.
Yeah.
I feel like our Vicar Paul is very laid back and very person-centred rather than ministry-centred. So he will allow you to do what you feel like you need to do within the midst of church volunteer ministry or work, in the sense of my work role there.
That's good. No, yeah, that's really good. It can be hard.
Which I think is really helpful, whereas I've realised that other people are probably not in the same context as that.
Yeah, that can be hard, where people are putting their external pressures. But doing any sort of ministry out of guilt is really bad. it's obvious when you're not in it, but it's a really bad way to doing it,
Yeah.
because you just feel guilty for not doing it. Like, if you feel convicted that it's the right thing to do, that's a bit different. But I think, yeah, just doing it out of guilt or because of other people's expectations.
Yeah. And I feel like when you say yes to everything, you're less discerning in terms of what you choose to do as well. You just say yes to every idea that sounds good.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel when you are more selective with your time, you are more discerning in terms of what you choose to do with that time. So, what new ministry things you take on, you're a lot more discerning in terms of, is this something God's leading? Like, is this something God's asking me to do? Or is it just a good idea?
Yeah. And it can also break a sense of pride. Like, you might not want to miss out. The reason you say yes is you don't want to miss out on being part of that thing, or because you
Yeah.
think you're the only person who could possibly do it. And like, there's a bit of pride in that too, of like, they need me, they got to have me.
Yeah.
It's like, well, not always. Sometimes, you're uniquely kind of gifted to be in the place, but yeah, I think for me it's a good lesson in not having too much pride about, I might miss out, that's okay. And the whole world doesn't revolve around me, and the whole ministry doesn't revolve around me. So
Yeah.
if I'm not there, it'll still happen.
Yeah. And I think there's an honesty that needs to happen there, isn't there, with your church, whether you're a volunteer or a staff member, for there to be a dialogue. If your personal or family life is struggling because you're too involved in ministry, I think there needs to be a conversation there. I think sometimes we can feel, well, I'm getting paid for this, or I've signed up to be a volunteer for this, therefore I just need to grin and bear it.
Yeah.
And I'm in it now, so like I can't say no, or there is no wiggle room. Whereas I feel sometimes, unless you have that conversation and to be honest about where things are at, the other side, the other person or the other side might not realise what's happening. So you assume that they know that your personal life is struggling, or
Yeah.
that your family life, that actually by being involved in it, in all of these things you're involved in, everyone else will just see it as a good thing.
Yeah. And they won't realise the cost.
So I feel honest conversations are really important in the midst of that. And you can't assume too much from the other side. Churches have been going for however many years, therefore they must know, they must understand
Yeah. Yeah.
my context or what's happening with me, whereas they don't sometimes they don't understand it until you have that conversation.
Yeah.
It can be tough, but I think it is an important conversation to have.
And long term, it's good. And like, I found it helpful to think, I am the volunteer in this situation, I'm the youth worker in this situation, I'm the person who does this group, I'm the person who leads this ministry. But in all of those things, I'm replaceable. I've left my youth work job, they've got another youth worker. Fine. I don't volunteer at some stuff I used to volunteer at. I'll find someone else. But like, I'm Joe's only husband. I'm my kid's only dad. I'm my mate's, I'm my mate's only. I'm less replaceable in those relationships. And so actually, those are our kind of key ministries. Actually, I think like those are the ministries where I am much less replaceable. Like if I let my best mate down, that's a bigger deal than if I let my work down, in a sense, because they could just sack me.
Well, also within ministry, I think sometimes unless we step out the way or unless we say no to something, sometimes we're filling the gaps and then nobody else can come forward into them.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, there's a whole nother layer of it, isn't there? That actually sometimes when we say no to something, it gives somebody else the opportunity to say yes.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be there unless we said no. And sometimes people don't see a gap or see an opportunity for something until it's right there in front of them and until someone says they can't do it, and then there becomes a gap.
Yeah. And sometimes stuff's got to stop. And that's okay. Like, I hate that. So I'm saying that now. I don't like it. But sometimes stuff does have to stop.
Yeah. Or at least stop for a season.
Well,
and then
yeah, exactly. Or for
start in a
people to
different way.
realise that they value it too. Oh, what? No. I hadn't realised that that was good until it wasn't there anymore. And it sometimes gives the kind of motivation for more people to get behind it rather than just a one-person show carrying the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to take time to ask God where He's leading you in within your context as well. Because I think sometimes when we we have an agenda for something and we think we have stuff balanced or sorted. Actually, we need God to shine a light on the areas where we can improve, or the areas where we're not doing it as good as we think we are, and allow him to grow us within that. I think maybe that would be a good place to finish on that.
I think so.
Actually, God doesn't want us to be burnt out or feel busy all the time. God wants us to thrive in all those areas that you mentioned, Olly, in our family life, with our friends, with other activities or things that we're involved in, as well as the ministry that we serve on, whether we're paid or a volunteer. And there's a balance within all of that that needs to be found. And sometimes we either feel like we've got that right when we haven't, or we feel like we're failing in all of it and we actually need some wisdom to figure out why we feel like it's failing, and to pinpoint what are the areas where we can actually grow and make some different decisions so that we can move forward and feel like we're more on top of things.
And rely on God more than relying on ourselves as well, which is, as you know, if you're a high capacity person, which I don't think I am particularly, sometimes it can be tempting to, I've got all this, I've got this.
Yeah.
Whereas actually a bit of self-awareness to be like, I don't have all of this, and I don't have to either.
Yeah.
Christ who gives us strength to do stuff as well. We've got our own natural strength too, but like there's a certain sense of like God gives us the strength to do the stuff we need to do, but not more than either. So like, if we're doing more than we need to do, then we won't be able to like.
Yeah, and I think as human beings, we have a tendency, don't we, to just busy ourselves with things. And actually, sometimes our lives are so busy that there isn't room for anything else. Our hands are so full with stuff that we can't pick up anything else.
Yeah.
And actually, that isn't a good place to be, because sometimes God wants us to look for those opportunities for new things. And we feel like we're too full to even consider a new opportunity. And so we need to be people who we're not so full that actually there is a little bit of space for God to do something amazing that we weren't expecting.
Yeah. Cool.
So hopefully there's been some nuggets of wisdom within there.
In our ramblings, it's nice to be back together.
Yeah, not too much waffle, but a bit of wisdom in there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We will be back in January with another interview.
Yeah.
And we hope you have a fabulous Christmas and have a chance to reflect and ponder what the meaning of Christmas is for you, and find some joy and peace and hope within the midst of that for whatever your situation is. And we are cheering you on for whatever role you play within youth, kids or family ministry, or if you're not involved in any of them at the minute, for whatever role you play within your family, within your friends, within your context. We hope you have a fresh start in the new year to be able to perhaps consider where God's leading you in 2025. Other opportunities there might be to pick up stuff or to put down things, which I find the new year actually, it gives permission.
Yeah, to stop doing something.
I'm going to lay down something, I'm going to say no to something, or I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm going to make time for this. Or it's one of those moments, I think, where we get permission to perhaps make decisions that we wouldn't make any other time of year, which we can use for a positive as individuals. Thank you for listening. Obviously, do like, share and subscribe. It helps you find us again and helps other people find us. You can comment if you're listening on Spotify. There is a comment feature now, so you can comment on this, what you've liked about it, what you haven't liked, what you wish we'd covered.
Give us ideas for the next one.
Yeah, give us ideas for the next one. But yeah, thanks, Olly, for coming back on.
Thanks for having me.
It's been fab to chat and catch up.
Yeah, it's been good. Cool. Have a good Christmas.
See you next time. Bye-bye.